from? I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm second generation, Los Angelino out here. So my parents, they were born and raised in Los Angeles, and both my parents, but their parents migrated from the South. So my grandparents came from Mississippi, from Arkansas, North Carolina, so my lineage is there. And I had the opportunity of like growing up with both of my great grandparents on both sides. So, and they made it a point to tell me like that we was Indians, and that always stuck with me. So I had what my personal experience with my family growing up, and they identified as Indians, and I'm looking at these black people and they call themselves Indians. And I go to school and it's a different Indian that I'm being taught that is, the native to the land or the aboriginal to the land. So that was always a question for me, like, what is that? Because I don't see none of these people in my family. All my family members look like you and my sister right here, So I'm like, I'm trying to fight that. And as I'm growing up, I'm also being educated. My parents, made sure I was educated and I was going to school and I was like really learning stuff. So I had like a scientific mind early on. So I was really involved in, scientific thought and scientific experiments, whether it's biology or whatever. So in my schooling, I was from high school on into college, I was trained in like the scientific methodology, like, understanding how to research, understanding how to interpret data, information, and stuff like that. So, I'm this urban Indian and I'm just learning about Aboriginals. I'm learning about, the history that they teach in Black people, like where we come from, 1619, slave boats and stuff like that. And when you just apply the scientific method, reasoning and stuff like that, and really look into the research and you go to the primary sources, it kind of opened up my eyes and led me down different rabbit holes. And I was able to really find out like what my people was really saying to me, who we really were. Because we wasn't, when they was telling me we Indians, they wasn't saying like we mixed, you know what I'm saying? Or we're something other than Black people or Negroes or whatever you want to call us. So using that knowledge or that skill of knowing how to research, you find yourself learning or going into the areas of archaeology and learning about different things. So our people, we kind of stay on the surface and we use terminologies like Aboriginal or Indigenous. But when you like go into these real fields of archaeology, you learn about different terminologies like Mississippian. But just to that was like a real overview of who I am. I'm from LA. I played basketball at Fresno State out of high school. I went to Westchester High School in Los Angeles. Played basketball at Fresno State. I graduated from Long Beach State. I studied communication studies. Let's see, I worked for the NAACP. I studied under Maulana Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa. He was teaching at Long Beach State at the time when I was there. So I was able to really bump shoulders and talk with him a lot about certain things. So yeah, that's pretty much me. But yeah, that's who I am. That's where I'm from, and that's like the whole process of where I am today with the whole thing.
Okay. One common thing that I find most guests is they always say a grandparents. They got their grandparents, and their grandparents told them they were Indian, and this is not before AI. And so that's the common thing. My parents told me that they come from Indian ancestry. So it's like one thing that I find is important for us while we still have our elders, to be great aunts, what if we have our grandparents to ask them about data? Because once they die, they leave with data. They leave with the memory that they had. Most people can go back to when they were 6 years old. Some people can remember this when they were 3 and can account to being around certain groups and hearing certain stories about their Aboriginal Indian roots. So I'm glad to hear that that your grandparents passed that on. You were able to capture that data. Man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yes. And well, Wes, I would like to ask and yes, make a comment in having that knowledge and growing up with that knowledge. Do you feel that that made the difference for you in terms of going down certain roads as opposed to the road that you would have had in high school in those history books?
Definitely, yeah. So there's like there's two stories all the time is what you really find out when you go into scientific study. So you have like the narrative that's given to the academic bookmakers, like the textbook makers, you know, these textbook societies. They are the ones that are going to decide what information is given to the general public, but the general public doesn't know that they had to omit certain things, they had to change certain things or put spins or whatever, you know. It's just a lot of like you have to know the difference between a primary source and a secondary
Hmm.
source. You have to know
Yes.
if this is coming from the actual source, if this is just somebody speaking about something that happened. You know, if you don't have that knowledge, which is obtainable to anybody can obtain that knowledge, anybody can be taught. But if you don't have that, a lot of things can just be pushed over on you, you know, and you might find yourself accepting a lot of things that aren't really accurate, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think yeah, if I didn't have that knowledge, I would have for sure, you know, took a different route in my thought process and understanding and reasoning and interpretation of events and past events, present events, and future events. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, Speaking of culture, you share more about what you discovered in Mississippi, did your research, and why do you believe that you uncovered why do you believe what you uncovered is significant to our understanding of contemporary culture?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to break that down, that question down, and try to make sure I understand it. So the information that I've found, why do I believe that that is like important for us to know as far as like who we are right now and the culture that we have today? Is that am I understanding that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So right now what we have, I guess you would call it like black culture or African American culture. Um I guess we can agree on that or whatever. Like if you just hear us talking about our culture, we're gonna say black culture or, you know, black American culture, African American culture or whatever. That reality, like that construct that we have is has a beginning date, which they've started like at 1619. Like, and we can go to different documentaries, we can go to like different prominent people speaking about that particular date. Like that overall, like 1619 is when we believe our story starts. That's that is really trippy because the story doesn't really start there. So we have like we have a complete idea that we haven't chose to rethink or to see if it was accurate or to see, you know, if we got lied to here or there. So like our culture is basically constructed like by somebody else, because it has like a real date that wasn't given to us, 1619, you know. This is like a
Can you explain a little bit more on 1619 to those people who probably listening and probably wondering like 16.
Got you. So like 1619 is like when the first 20 and some odd Negroes, you know, came to the shores, and that's like where slavery started, and that's where the whole get down like began for us as in America from Africa.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, like if you know, we think that is for sure the reality. So our culture today has like evolved and devolved and changed and mutated based off of that information that we all have.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had, so that's important. Like our culture is based off of that information. But if we had different information, we would see our culture change even more. Like additional information, information that we haven't, that we wasn't privy to like factor in and say, hey, whoa, you know, we've been acting this way because we thought that this was the story.
Right.
You
We,
know,
we
we've
were
gotten,
yeah.
we've kind of like gotten, like we've made our own idea of something, and it's very similar to what we see in movies for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very far from the actual thing that really is documented, that now we have information that's available to us that we didn't have in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s really.
Right.
So I think it's important, this information that, you know, I'm trying to push out, and others are trying to push out too. It's important because it'll help us get back to our true culture. Right now, we got like a bastardized culture.
Yes.
You know,
I agree with you. I think what given is not necessarily false. It's a half truth. Out of the whole pie is such a small piece that we bought into the small piece, and then now we're starting to connect the dots. So we fit the whole pie, because a lot of stuff that happened and it was not documented. And so it's like, and I hear what you're saying, and about just them pushing a narrative, a storyline on us much, and thinking that's the end all be all.
right,
Right.
exactly.
And Wild West, please talk about that. Please talk about what you have found predating 1619.
So it's many areas to like go into. So even when we think about 1619, many of us, since we call ourselves Black, we
Mm.
refer to those that supposedly came over here in 1619 as the whites. So we're not we're not tuned to like nationalized thinking. Like when you have a real nationality, you don't refer to another nation by a color. You refer to
That's
them by
right.
their nation. So
That's
like
right.
when we say 1619, white people brought Black people over here from Africa as slaves or whatever, we're like, what white people did it? Because white people wasn't white people at that time. Like white people wasn't even cool with each other at that time. So it's like, cool. You have to like really change your questions and like starting there. So who came over here in 1619? You know, was it
That's
the
deep.
Dutch? Was it the English? Was it the French? Was it the Spanish? You know, who was it?
Mhm.
Um, so just starting there, you have to ask certain questions that's not black and white questions,
That's
you
right.
know. Um, but then when you find out who did come over here first, you realize it was the Spanish. And when you see that the Spanish came over here, see, we don't know that information because we're not under Spanish rule right now. We're under English rule. So the England doesn't have to tell us what the Spanish failed at. They don't have to tell us what the French failed at. They're only going to start their story like where it sounds cool for them. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. That's so
So
true.
when you start the story with the Spanish, in the late 1400s or the early 1500s, you find out that where they went, you know, whether it's down into South America, whether it's down in Central America, and or if it's in Florida or in Georgia, you know, you're gonna find out that. But when you find that out, now you get into the conflicts they had with Black people, like real Black people. And now the story doesn't start at 1619. It starts in really, you know, 1562 to 1500s, you know, Tuscaloosa era. It starts before all that. It starts with that,
Yeah,
you
it's so
know.
deep you say that because I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Brian.
Tuscaloosa Avenue. I mean, not Tuscaloosa. Well, I live on a street called Tuscaloosa Avenue, but the city of Tuscaloosa, where Alabama football plays, they have mounds. A place called Moundville. And the mounds they claim were built by the Mississippians. I think it was the Cohikians. And they claim they lived in that territory around 1,000, maybe ended around, I think, maybe 1,300 or 1,500. But it's fascinating to say. It's not even fascinating. It's we've been told a lie. Let's get let's not we've been told a lie. We bought into
Absolutely.
we drunk Kool-Aid. We drunk the Kool-Aid and thinking we picking callers. We could just come from Africa singing on. Yeah, we did that, but that wasn't the whole story.
Right.
Indians were mixed in with the slaves and called certain names, like me and LaChris was discovering. The term mulatto can have different meanings in terminology. They didn't fit to put Indian on census. They just put mulatto. How are they classifying the indigenous of the land? And did they know it? Did how much information did they know of the land? And when they came there, who brought them to the land to give them and say this area is this area? Because you came from not knowing any parts of the land.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Any access or anything that the European had that was of any value over here he was given access. He didn't take anything. Is what we don't really understand, you know, like it was real merchant empires over here. Like the Mississippians and the Mayans and the Incas were in connection, you know, had the same religion, were speaking Hebrew, you know what I'm saying, were growing cotton, growing tobacco, growing all the different agricultural crops that the Eastern countries would die for and kill for, you know what I'm saying? But that's like, you know, when we talk about this, it's really important that we stay on time periods because we'll find ourselves jumping into medieval time periods and comparing it to, you know, the census, which is in the 1900s, you know. So it's like really important for us to understand every sector of this history book. You know what I mean?
Wow.
You go back as far as like for me, I like going back to to the Emerald Tablets when Thoth is talking the Atlanteans, and then he's talking about when the flood happened, we're all dispersed, and there were some.
Oh, that's beautiful. Keep going. You're getting it cracking right now. Go ahead.
No, I see your excitement. Go ahead. Go take it away.
All right, now we a little early in the conversation for that, but you got right to it. So you saying how far back can we go, right? So the United States Department of Interiors, they have on their website where they have the timeline of the Mississippians, and it's like all the way back like 10,000 BC, right? So 10,000 BC, they're like estimating that mound building started somewhere around 10,000 to 8,000 years ago, or so 11,000, 12,000 years ago. That's older than Mesopotamia. That's older than everything. Like if you go to history.com and you pull up any timeline, they're going to show you Greece. They're going to show you Mesopotamia. They're never going to show you the Mississippian timeline, though. They're never going to put that on there. They'll even show you like the Aztecs in like the 1300s AD, you know, like 700 to 1300 AD or whatever. But they just breaking it off. They don't even giving you a whole story. So it's like the Mississippian timeline is super ancient, right? We're not on any of the timelines that you can see on any documentaries or anything. So you say how far back we can go. We have the oldest timeline. Our mounds are older and our pyramids are older than anything else in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our Hebrew is the oldest Hebrew in the world. We got what they call monumental Hebrew or block Hebrew, which they found in the mounds, excavated out of the mounds. When all of the Spanish, oh well, don't let me jump. We still back in time. So we in the BC timeline, right? So you brought up the Emerald Tablets. So this book right here, archives.org is what all the people need to get hip to, because nobody knew that the internet was just going to provide access to the information they did not want to be out there. So like this book right here was written, and this is just a PDF copy, but you know, these books are out of print. So this is from 1882, and this is Atlantis, the Antediluvian World by Ignatius Donnelly. Okay. New York, Harper and Brothers, Franklin Square. So these are like real big deals. You brought up like the Emerald Tablet. So like Egypt is a small colony to the Mississippians, but it's just broad because when we go back in time, we're going to go to the Phoenicians, us going from Mississippi to over there, our identity becomes the Phoenicians.
Okay.
But over here in Atlantis, like Atlantis is North America, South America, and Central America together in the islands. So Haiti is speaking Hebrew. All the islands are speaking Hebrew. We're speaking Hebrew in North America. We're speaking Hebrew in Central America and in South America. Okay, and we have like these morning star deities. We have like Quetzalcoatl. We have like like the morning, all these morning stars, all these different characters, all these feathered serpents. You know, these are like the oldest mythologies that are over here, and they make their way to the Eastern world in small manuscripts, small pieces of manuscripts. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
We educate the Egyptians. The Egyptians educate the Greeks. The Greeks educate the rest of the Eastern world.
Yeah.
The Greeks are fascinated by the Egyptians, but the Egyptians are students of the stone workers and the great Mason stone builders that are coming from over here. Like all of the Solomon style temples that they can't find in the Eastern world exist here. In whether it's in Mexico, Palenque, whether it's in South America, whether it's in North America, all of the Solomon style Phoenician, Hebrew, you know, cultured buildings with the temple on the top.
Right.
These are all over here. They can't find them over there. You know, they got pieces, little small manuscripts of Hebrew that they saved.
Right.
But all of the real Hebrew is being excavated out of here. All of the oldest Hebrew, you know. So I don't know. That was just like a little
Yeah.
like glimpse to your question, but it's all
Yeah.
documented. It's
You know,
really
it's funny. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no. Go ahead.
It's deep. When you talk about architecture, I know it's not lost on people that when you see all the domes or the capitals in different cities, they're all the same. They look very Moorish, Islamic. And we do know that many people who came here, particularly the colonists, were actually Sephardic Jews and Muslims. So, which is not talked about very much um, in our history. But when you look at the architecture, they give themselves away.
Yeah, the architecture now, Moorish style architecture. Now, okay, if we look at this right here, so like if you look at Mexico City, uh, let's look this up right here. So this is from Washington State Library's digital collections, but the painting is called "The Meeting of Cortez and Montezuma" in 1519, which is located in Mexico City, right? So like this is
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
this that if you look up Google Mexico City right now and see that big cathedral building, you're gonna see the same arch doors, you're gonna see the same,
Mhm.
points that they have, but this is a colored version. Let's see.
Yeah.
This is just a printout. Sorry,
That's
Oh no, you
okay.
good. You can
That's
see.
perfect. Yeah.
but you know, these buildings were being built over here, in the olden times, and that technology, that mathematical knowledge traveled when we went over there. Um,
And and then you have to ask, did it already exist? Or did they say they built it? You know what I mean? Because it's so old and so there's so much structure, and how does it just appear?
usually, like, okay, so even like when Spain conquered the Muslims in 1492, the buildings that the Muslims built, they just knocked the crescent moon off the top of that and they just throw their cross up on the top of it. Like even when you go to New Orleans right now, like if you go to any downtown in the United States, you're gonna see these old looking buildings that look relatively the same, like Wild West
Yep,
style or whatever.
that's
But if
right.
you go to the Dominican Republic, you're gonna see the same buildings. And if you go to Mexico, you're gonna see the same buildings. And if you go to
Mhm.
South America, you're gonna see the same buildings. But if you go like to New Orleans, like they call the area the French Quarters,
Yeah, yeah.
where they do Mardi Gras at, right? They call it the French Quarters. But when you walk around there, they got plaques on the walls that say this was first a Spanish colony. The
Mhm.
Spanish didn't build it though, so it's now the
So
French
deep.
Quarters, but it was the Spanish Quarters. But before that, it was, the Cherokee. It was Indian country.
Right.
Something else. Something else. Wow.
Let's just start off with like North America. We call it North America right now, but we can call it Mississippi because the Great Water is the Mississippi River, and it has tributary rivers that branch off into like 36 different states. You know what I mean? So it provides a lot of nourishment for the land here. So they call the people that develop these particular sites around this valley the Mississippians. So I just wanted to start off with that. But the significance of the mounds in this valley around these, lush, plush, like river type areas, was mound building. And the mounds had different purposes. So there were burial mounds, there were platform mounds where you would have certain offices that were built on top of a platform mound. You may have an advisor of the chief that lived over here. You may have a chief that lived right there. Um, Certain mounds were aligned with the constellations. You know, um, Certain mounds were effigy mounds where they would tell a story with a particular animal, you know, whether it was a snake eating like the serpent mound, like a snake eating the egg, or eagle mound or turtle mound, any one of these particular type of like acknowledgments to a particular type of animal energy. So it was many different reasons why they had these mounds, and they are numerous all over, everywhere. I mean, they had to basically level so many of them just to like make the highways that we have. Like, you know, so the culture was preserving, um, you know, the ancestors. There was particular type of burial rites and ceremonies that was geared around these mounds. You know, you would have ancestors that were seated in certain directions within the mounds, laid and covered in certain materials like super sacred purity, anointed type of ceremonies for burials. So yeah, there were war mounds, you know, so many different types, man. It was just an
Wow.
interesting time in history for us over here, you know, that we haven't really tapped into or saw on the big, you know, Hollywood screen or anything. And to keep in mind, these mound builders are looking like this. You
Yes.
know, I show this a
Wow,
lot.
West. You said something really profound about they had to level the mounds for the freeways. Now, this is interesting. If they've leveled these mounds, they took what was in those mounds, right? So they know.
Oh,
So,
for sure. And they document, you know, it's important that you say that. I'm glad that you say that. I think I have uh let me see. I thought that I pulled one out here.
And
I
while you
just
look,
want to. Oh yeah, let me just show y'all this real quick. So while you said
mm,
that, you know, they pulled everything that we had out of it. And
mm,
when you
mm,
go into
mm,
like books like this,
mhm.
so this
Yes.
is Smithsonian Institution Bureau of American Ethnology Bulletin
Oh, they have
122, an
they have so
archaeological.
much.
Right. An archaeological survey of Wheeler Basin on the Tennessee River in northern Alabama. And when you open up the book, they got our bones.
That's crazy. That's insane. That's insane.
wow, that's deep. So this is Smithsonian, is
Wait.
this in the Smithsonian Institute? Did they have this on display?
The Smithsonian began with the research here in North America. So that's where the Smithsonian first cracked off at. Like, this is an institution that was born over here, and they really got their, you know, they really got you know, broken into the game by researching us and taking and buying everything off, stealing everything off of us. You know what I'm saying?
And
So this is the Smithsonian. They document everything.
Everything.
do you think they're able to because I'm sure they probably, I guess it's not top secret if they have it in the book, right? But I think why they haven't spread this all this information to the masses, do you think they're afraid of like a mass awakening? And that people would now know who they are. If they actually, yes, we have this information, but if you don't ask, we're gonna share it with you. If you don't seek, you won't find it.
Right. Just say like, if a I don't want to get us flagged or anything, but if like a Palestinian didn't know that they was from Palestine, they wouldn't be fighting for nothing.
Right.
They would be
Yeah.
just moving into whatever next position the authority have for them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Knowing that your grandparents was here and they built mounds here, and they grandparents is in those mounds, that's powerful information. You're not gonna be saying you from Africa or you from Ghana
Mhm.
somewhere. You're not gonna be trying to find refuge in Egypt. You know, you're not gonna be doing that. You're gonna be
Right.
full blown Mississippi.
That's right.
So that information is powerful. You got to keep that away from the children at all costs. But they did
And,
not know that these databases was going to become digitized.
yeah. And there's a lot of information. Speaking of flag, yes, there's a lot where we can have a private conversation too, offsite, because the information is there, but it's really buried. And you and I, and Brian, we know that this is years of research. I literally have spent hours in the archives just one day looking for information. So over the years, you can imagine the countless information you find. And I'm like, whoa, it's right here.
Yeah.
So
The
one of the
first
things,
book that the Smithsonian, I'm sorry, can I say
oh,
this?
that's okay.
The,
Absolutely.
the first book that the Smithsonian ever published was titled Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, which was done by the Army, the Army Corps of Engineers, if I'm saying that right. So they in that book, they documented all the mounds before they were leveled. And you could just see the massive technical engineering that was involved in these projects. And you know, it was just amazing. I'm talking about acreage, you know, incorporating river streams around a circular mound is just incredible engineering that we don't like. It's right here in our backyard, you know. So we don't, I don't see any of us like taking a pilgrimage to any of these mounds, you know. So but yeah, it's just interesting that the Smithsonian, the first book that they ever published was you know, the monuments of the Mississippi Valley, the ancient monuments of the Mississippi Valley, which I happen to own the first edition copy of that, by the way.
Yeah.
You know,
We love
printed.
your Instagram. We so love your Instagram. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going to put all of that in the description too, because people really do need to see all of the amazing work you've done. And you physically go to places. So you're not just talking about it and writing about it in a book. You're actually physically going and showing people. And that's so fascinating.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, because we need more passion, like us all to help this data and to get more people talking about it. A lot of people have dismissed grandparents telling them, oh yeah, we ended because my family did. I'm the only one that said ears puckered up. Right? Everybody was like, okay, so what? So what?
Right.
It's like there has yes, go ahead.
Can I say something about the term Indian? Which is super powerful when you connect it to the Hebrew stuff, right? Okay. So Columbus, he was a Sephardic Jew. When he got here, he said, this is, you know, Los Niños Indios. Los Niños Indios. These are the children of God. Indios became Indian once the English started to utilize that term or whatever. But just think about, like, he was a Sephardic Jew. And when he got here, he said, yo, this is paradise. These people are, we were practicing, if anybody ever know about James Adair or William Penn, they all talked about the blacks like having these Hebrew ceremonies and like the characteristics of the lost tribes or whatever, you know, certain practices, certain things that we ate, certain fast and feast ceremonies that we had, the way we anointed ourselves with, you know, different oils, or the way we were aligning our homes in certain directions, or burying ourselves in certain directions. It's like, yo, they got Jewish customs. But when you just think about that term Indian and what it came from, Indios, Los Niños Indios, meaning, yo, he saw the true children of God practicing these Hebrew customs. And now we're using that term Indian. Like, we don't think about that, just that, what it really started at, though. You know, because then we have all these different things about you know, Hebrew being found over here, or the 10 or the 12 tribes of Israel is from over here. But then you're like, dang, Indian, and he really said Los Niños Indios. Like, whoa, that was a trip. I don't know if I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if that's really
no. Any information is about collecting data. Anybody can
Mhm.
platform and watch and say, he don't know what he's. No, all data is valid.
Right, right.
It's the viewer to put the pieces that they want to construct together. So you're adding nothing but data. Now a person can invalidate it or validate it.
Right, exactly.
It's their choice. We bring you the data from another person's passion, and then let the viewers decide how they want to digest.
Right, right. Yeah.
So keep speaking your heart's truth. The book that you held up. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because on your Instagram page, I mean, can you speak more about that book?
Which one?
The last book you held up, the black with the black Indian on it. I think is what is that?
Oh, this one right here.
Yes.
So
That's in German. Is that German or Dutch?
yeah, this is in, I believe, yeah, German or Dutch, I believe. So this is basically an archive book of the Dresden State Art Collection.
Okay.
Okay.
So, which is Europe's like prized possession of antiquity, really. And in that, like they have, it's huge. You know, they got gold rooms. It's huge. But Satyriona, which is the name of this brother right here, is the centerpiece to this entire collection. Thousands of different pieces of antiquity that is like, highly valued. That man, this statue was created in 1724 by Augustus the Strong. But this man didn't live in 1724. He lived in 1562. The way that Augustus the Strong was able to create this statue representing him was based off of Jacques Lamont's paintings, first-hand account paintings when he came over here with Jean Rabault with the French. So, and they document that all of his paintings, Jacques Lamont's paintings, in this book called Discovering the New World by Theodore de Bry. So that history is Spain and first history in the United States. This is who they encounter when they first arrive here in Florida. And you have to understand that this culture, these customs, this tradition, the feathered crown, this is consistent in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all the way up northeast, Michigan, Texas, because the Cato Mounds is in Texas, this is everywhere in North America. And not to mention, it's in South America. I mean, it's in Central America and in South America. Like, but the culture changes a little bit when it gets into Central America. But the feather crown, the same ritual practices, the same language of Hebrew is being spoken all the way down to like the bottom tip of South America.
And I don't mean to be controversial, but I'm going to have to say it. And we're told that we're misappropriating someone's culture when we say we're Indian.
Right, exactly. Because we taught that, the Indian is this slick-haired, Hispanic, Asian-looking person, which is that credibility, that narrative wasn't even constructed by them themselves. It was constructed by the U.S. government. You know what I mean? So while when the census began, the census takers started going around. We were still calling ourselves Indians, but it came to a point where they started to amend our records and cross the Indian out and put colored or black. You know what I'm saying?
You could see it. You could see the forgery on the censuses. You sure can.
Exactly. So, and an Indian can't be a part of the colonies. An Indian can't be a part of the United States, or it's not really the United States. Like, in certain time periods, but they can't be a part of that government that they were trying to produce. The Indian is always on the outside. You know, once you become a Negro, you separated from your clan, and you now you either confined or you are like in society with the colonies. You know, you're a Negro or Negro or whatever the terminology is. But yeah, this is important that this was happening all the way up into the 1700s. Because when we go into books like the cartography of North America, when we start looking at all the different maps that they were creating, we could see that they were putting, like, they would put the landmass, and then they'll put images of the people that are there and the type of things that they're involved in or whatever. Like, they'll put little images describing the landmass. And you see these characters in many different maps that they created for Virginia and Florida. They created for, you know, Florida by itself, Georgia. You know, they were showing us that these were the people in charge. These were the people with the plantations. These were the people that were growing tobacco, that were growing cotton, that were growing corn, that were growing squash and beans and all these different things. You know, and they had agricultural ritual practices and belief systems. So yeah, I don't know if I got off on a tangent or whatever.
No,
So I'm
that's
sorry I'll be
perfect.
doing stuff like that.
No, I mean, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, one of the things I remember when I was a child, and I would hear these slave narratives, and I would hear the stories, and one of the main questions I always had, and no one can answer me, was how did the African slave know how to grow and plant and do all the work? How did they know how to do it? They were foreign to the country, and no one can answer my question. Like, well, I said, well, no, I said, that's not how it works. And even no, when you travel, when you go anywhere, you've never been, who do you rely on? You rely on the locals because you don't know anything about where you are. I don't care if you're in Texas or you're in France, you don't know anything about the land. So you're going to go to the locals.
You don't know what the week's weather might look like. You know what I'm saying? You're like, what?
That part.
You know,
All of
that's
that.
just true. The European, when they first got here, it's a book that I have that really it's called The History of Tobacco. And that's something that Black people really need to take serious, is the history of tobacco. Because you will really find, like the Amsterdam Museum of Tobacco, they're going to show you so much Black royalty. You're going to be like, what the heck? They're going to show you so many, because tobacco products were like the first products to have images where you in the source of where the product came from. Because you know how you see made in Taiwan, made in Vietnam, made in China. They was taking tobacco over here and selling it back to Europe, and they was putting that it was from over here by using our imagery. It made it what do you call it? What's the word? Exotic. You know, this is coming from the land of milk and honey, you know, where the land of gold, where they got roads paved in gold. This is what the Europeans think about the Americas. So tobacco is the first products to have that imagery on it, and it has all of us on it. And they're showing us in South Carolina. They're showing you in Tennessee, you know, with feathered crowns, and, you know, people drying out tobacco, and, you know, kings holding tobacco, sitting on thrones and stuff like that. Black colored people. So it's all drawings, but it's when you cross reference, you know, you're like, okay, tobacco, that's us. Cotton, okay, that's us. You know, you when you do the history and you just start connecting the dots, it's like, wow. Because you don't see, and it's crazy, you don't see, and when you go into the tobacco history and all those different images of the first like product brands, you don't see the Native American on there. They're not in that tobacco history. It's only like once you get to revised paintings done in the 20th century do you see the tobacco Indian looking like a like a Asian or a Hispanic, you know?
And I love your data.
Yeah.
I wants to travel back. I want to go back when you mentioned that in these mounds were found. They found Hebrew writing. How important is it for listeners? Can you show that again?
Yeah. So this is one. This is they found the 10 Commandments.
Mm.
So this is the block Hebrew that they found, the 10 Commandments.
What?
But you could go ahead and ask what you were. They're called. It's called the Newark Holy Stones. The Newark Holy Stones. Everybody look that up.
Newark.
The Newark
Where?
Holy Stones. That's in Ohio. So right where
Ohio.
LeBron James is from.
That's
So
where my family's from.
NEWRK.
NEWARK. Yeah.
This is so deep.
Yeah, it's the Newark
Holy Stones.
Newark
Newark Holy Stones.
Holy Stones. Okay, now they found Hebrew. How important? Do you think it's important for since they found Hebrew? It was probably in Hebrew. Think it's important for us to be learning Hebrew because certain words in Hebrew probably have a totally different meaning. Spoken English, even the Bible, written in English, it was written in Hebrew in the Testament. It have a whole different meaning of words. Do you think it's important that he should possibly be studying Hebrew?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we should incorporate as much of our ancient culture as possible. So I say shalom. I want to learn Hebrew. I think that it's important that I learn Hebrew. Whether I do or not, like fully become fluent in it is one thing. But as long as I start to utilize terminology that is Hebrew, and my daughter walking around, she's going to, at some point, in my heart, she's going to take it upon herself to learn even more.
Yes.
And then she'll do the same thing with her daughter, and her daughter may learn even more. And I'm just looking at it like that. So if we could do small steps to take it back, because it is for sure. If you, I got so much like printouts and books right here right now. We should take it back, and we should start utilizing as much as possible. Whether that's greetings, whether that's a toast where you say L'chaim. When you toast, don't say cheers, say L'chaim, and try to say it with the accent if you can, and do all that as much as possible. And really get serious with it because it's sacred. The Spanish speak Spanish. The French speak French. The English speak English. So if our ancients were speaking Hebrew, we should throw a little bit in there just for respect. You know what I mean? And some of us may take it all the way and be full blown fluent, which I totally applaud that. But for sure, say a couple toast words, greeting words, and say some goodbyes in Hebrew. That's cool. And that's not saying that you connecting yourself with Christianity or any of a Judaism or Judeo-Christian ideology. That's not what that is. When we really go into Hebrew, we'll find out, who the real deities are. When we go into the Mississippian pantheon, you'll find out who that really belonged to. But yeah, let's utilize Hebrew if we can. To all the people that's for sure serious about this, I would definitely advise that, in my own personal opinion. But that's just my personal opinion.
Oh, this is so deep. So deep.
I know we wrapping up on time, but I want to ask you, viewers do right now to obtain information about their lineage and to carry it further? What
What
advice would you give?
what they can do to find out information about their lineage, for sure. I would say Ancestry.com definitely has the database where you can find death certificates, birth certificates, marriage licenses, all that different type of good stuff. Don't even worry about the entertainment part where you spit in the
Right.
tube and you try to tell them what your breakdown is. That's completely um it's completely inaccurate, and they tell you when you
Mhm.
go to the about us on every
Yep.
one of those, like, how
Yep.
accurate it is. You can only, like, once you get past the third cousin, it's basically 40% accurate, which is 50% is a fail on any test. You know what I'm saying? So
That's right.
it's all made up.
I'm gonna do a video on that too. Another thing, and Wild West, tell me if you. I know you've probably thought of this. I even go deeper with the ancestry documents. These are legal documents. You're going to need these.
Oh yeah, for
Would you
sure.
agree?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely collect those and print them out or save them on any
Mhm.
hard drive or whatever. But that's what you can do just to find out where your grandparents are from. So where your grandparents are from, where your great grandparents are from, as far back as you can go, try to
Mhm.
find those documents. And you can weed out, ask your aunties or whatever who was living in certain houses. So you can look at these documents and you can see, okay, that's my cousin right there. That's my cousin right there. Okay, this is the household. I know this is my people for sure. And you do that and you go all the way back to 1830 or whatever. But if you go back to 1830, just know that most white people here can't do that. You know, so you are Mexicans, whoever is here, Armenians, nobody's grandparents is going back to the 1800s. So it's only a small amount of white people, really. And a lot of white people came here on what you call that, the island, I forget.
The
But
Ellis Island.
Ellis
Hmm.
Island, a lot of their grandparents just got here.
Yeah.
So many of us, are practically all of us, is gonna find ourselves in the 1800s. And if you're really lucky or whatever, you might have to go down to the county or the courthouse or whatever, really go into the books and really find your people after you get done with as much
Hmm.
research as you can with what Ancestry.com allow you to do.
Yeah. So deep. Wow. Well, Wes, this is an ongoing conversation. We definitely want to have you come back again. My gosh, we could talk all day about this. I know we didn't even scratch half of it that we wanted to ask you tonight. But my goodness, this has been amazing. And we're going to leave all of your contact information, your Instagram, and for everyone who's watching this, please visit his Instagram. And it's just chock full of information and data and imagery and videos. It's really great stuff there.
Thank
And
you, thank you,
I
appreciate
love
that.
your passion. It's all about passion. I would say follow any passion. And if nobody has passion behind what they do, I was clear from them. But I love your passion and your desire for knowledge. And I applaud you to continue to keep it going. And thanks for being on the show, sharing your knowledge, because it takes a village to bring your knowledge. You bring your knowledge, and you bring your knowledge and your knowledge. It would take multiple lifetimes for one person to collect a lot of data, the whole picture. It's almost impossible. So we need each other to put the puzzle together, piece by piece, through passion. And I
Right,
thank
right.
you
yes.
for your passion.
Yeah.
I
Another thing
appreciate
I
you,
want to
brother.
say,
Thank
just
you.
looking at all of us too, well, Wes, looking at all of us, one of the things I would love for the quote unquote African American to know when it comes to their indigenous and Aboriginal status is we are different ranges of the rainbow here. And just looking at all of us, we're all indigenous. So when you talked earlier about what that looks like. You can't just say, "Oh, we're black." What is black? And we have to, again, like you said before, tie ourselves to the land.
Yeah,
Tie
for
ourselves to
sure.
the land. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Any you know, if you go to any Asian country or any country, if it's Korea, or if it's China, or if it's any country, they're not going to associate themselves with the color. You know, they're going to tie themselves to the land. You know, and that's just what the people have to do. But so I guess it'll take some time. But you know, that's why we're here. You know, we want to get the information
Yes.
out here so people could know what the options are.
Yes, absolutely. Well, wow, Wes, this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I hope to be back soon.
Oh, yes, we definitely gonna do that before the year's over for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go, could you share one quick knowledge, like something that's
Yes.
been on your heart that you want to share, that you know, maybe something that you forgot to say, or you know, something that you're very, very passionate about right now in this very moment?
Yeah, so you know, I really want to build on just the knowledge of our ancestral practices, our ceremonies, our ritual practices, our agricultural practices. You know, I really want to get that information out there. I really can't do it in a small set of time, but you know, I'll be building on that on my platform on Instagram. But yeah, I definitely just want people to look into Mississippi, you know, look into that history, you know, as much as you can. Find out what you can look into with that terminology, Mississippian, because that's just most important for us to know. Like repatriation. Oh, that's where we at. Repatriation is where we at. So what are we asking for? What do we want for the harm that was done to us for reparations? You know, that's the term that we all know and we push, and you know, that's just most highlighted. But repatriation is really what we need to be thinking about. And that's really getting back to who you were before you were stripped of your land, your culture, your language, your ritual practices, your religion. You know,
Mm.
that's what we need to be thinking about. Because once we repatriate, then we start to take action steps, you know. So we call ourselves Mississippian. We refer to ourselves as Cherokees, Choctaws, Chickasaws, or whatever. We refer to the landmass as Mississippian. You know, we start to think, we start to, you know, recalibrate our thinking and the way we see things and the way we want people to interact with us and how we want people to see and refer to us, you know. So I think that, yeah, repatriation is where we need to be thinking about. And when we say repatriate to what, yeah, it's Mississippian. Most of us may come from, we're gonna be coming from different places. Our families may be from Georgia, maybe from Arkansas, maybe from Tennessee, but Mississippi is the umbrella terminology. You know what I'm saying? So if you tell me you Mississippi, and I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, where you from? Oh, my people from, you know, Chickasaw country or Choctaw country, and I'm gonna know where that's at. You know, or my family is you know, any of the nations, you know. You know, we should start thinking about the landmass like how it used to be and what it really is. So yeah, because if you think about a European, oh, you European, where you at? From where in Europe? Oh, I'm from Britain, or I'm from London, or I'm from France, or I'm from, you know, Greece. You know, that's a European. Mississippian is a Choctaw, Cherokee, Chickasaw. You know, and all of the rest of the ones that we come from, Blackfoot, whatever, you know, Seminole, these are later terminologies, but if you come from there, you still a Mississippian, you know, so that's important. Repatriate. We got to get back to that because once you repatriate, then you able to get reparations because now you actually know what harm was done to who got hurt, who hurt who, you know. But if you want reparations for slavery, you don't know that white people might be getting the reparations more so than black people because it was more white
Oh,
slaves than black slaves. We don't even know that.
goodness. I'm gonna do video on that. Man,
Beautiful.
when she said that,
So,
this is so amazing.
But yeah, repatriation to people. That's all I want the people to know.
repatriation. So yeah, learn your culture, learn who you are, study the Mississippian culture, if you can, add to your list of books and things that you're going to study. Wild West, thank you for joining the show. Thank you for co-host LaChris Jordan. And this is another episode of American Aboriginal. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.